How about that? Can y'all hear me okay? Listen, we got here late last night. Jane had already started, and we walked in that back door, and I almost crapped myself. I never saw so many people on a Thursday night. I mean, it just like, what is this? It just surreal ride coming from the airport. Toby and Nick, I kept asking them questions about things like what are those white things floating in the sky? And he said, clouds? And I went, yeah. What? Everything is green. Listen, it's desert in Central Texas where Chris and I live right now. It's just crazy. And so it was like we were in heaven when we got off that airplane like that. And so this is what humidity feels like. This is what, I mean, just no clue. I got to tell you, for those that I haven't met, my name is Myers Raymer. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic from Central Texas, Ingram to be exact, which is in the middle of freaking nowhere. Seriously, there's so many of y'all that I know and have met and have talked to, and it's such a treat to meet you in person. For a lot of you like that. My hair care sponsor is here, Peter. The only man I have ever met that travels with a suitcase with nothing in it but hair care product. But I'm not judging him. I was drawn to him. I mean, it's just like flat magic. I could spend 40 minutes just telling stories about our travel together. It's just pretty amazing stuff. I love doing these where Chris is here too, because that way, if I talk first, then we can sort of straighten each other's mistakes out, and so he can sort it all out Saturday night, and it'll be a good deal. It's funny, Chris saved my life twice in AA. Once when I first sobered up, he took me to my first AA meeting. He sobered up 2 months before I did, which he never lets me forget, and it's just, that's okay. I'm 3 minutes older than he is, and I never let him forget that either. So y'all should be able to detect the wisdom. All this, don't I look wise up here with this? But he 7 years later, when I crashed and burned in AA, when life was absolutely the lowest I've ever been, sober 7 years in these rooms, Chris said, "I got a better solution," and introduced me to an old guy that changed the course of my whole existence on this planet. And it was just an amazing kind of a situation. I've got this sweet spot kind of for. I love newcomers. I want to hug everybody. I love newcomers. But let me tell you the folks that I'm always drawn to most of all. People who've been in the rooms for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, and they're just sort of brittle and just ready to crack. I mean, it's this place that some of us get where we just are as dry as we can be. We're sober one stupid day at a time, but we haven't really realized the cool stuff, and I get that. I'm never judging it, but I'm hypersensitive when I see it. I can tell by the way you look, the way you walk, the way you sit. I can just see that, and it always kind of gets me in the feels and makes me want to go, dude, you do realize that there's a little more here than what you think. We come from a long line. Chris and I both do come from a long line of people who were twisted up in booze and dope like that. If you kick the Raymer family tree, little drunks and dope fiends fall out all over the ground. I mean, it's just like it's just sort of a crazy deal. My dad was an alcoholic, one of the kindest, gentlest men I've ever met in my whole life, but he drank to the end, and it was just a hard thing to deal with. Most of y'all are like me. If you were raised in an alcoholic family, most of you go, I'm never going to touch that stuff. I'm never going to touch that stuff until somebody says, here, drink this, and you drink it and you go, I'm going to never stop touching that stuff. It's just like, it's just amazing how I remember drinking my first beer sitting in by the Guadalupe River, heading for a basketball thing over in Fredericksburg, and I'll never forget sitting there, and I took a drink, and then I took another drink, and then I took another one, and I went, And for the first time in my existence, I wasn't anxious, I wasn't lonely, I was just like, I'll never forget walking into that gymnasium that night, and I talked to every girl in the place. They never talked back. I'm just going to be honest with you, okay? It's just like, butt ugly is butt ugly. It doesn't help any like that. But it didn't seem to matter. I was okay in my own skin, and it was pretty special. And got married, had some babies, and everything was okay. Until it's not. It's the way it always is like that. There were. I didn't have a lot of drama. I like Jane's story. I was going to take Jane and just say, I want to do your story instead of my story, because at least it was worth listening to. Mine was just boring. Just a sloppy drunk. And then Chris, that bastard, He introduces me to some outside issues, which sort of sped things up. And we used to call them our alcohol enhancers, so we could drink more. And it's just like, and it never ends well. It was kind of a great. Now today I'm a member of 2 fellowships, DAA and AA, and thank you. It's just anyhow So Chris takes me to my first meeting. He gets sober, and I'm blown away. He'd been trying for 7 years to get sober, and he got sober. And then he kept crashing and burning, and eventually it took. And then I watched the change in the guy. He was a completely different person, and I just went, well, I got to do that. I got to do that. I remember sitting in my Land Cruiser, leaning in my driveway, and I'm leaning there, and it's about 6 o'clock in the evening, and the sun's going down. It's hotter than heck in Dallas, and I'm drinking this last beer, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it. And then I'm thinking, I can't do this. How am I ever going to be sober on 4th of July? I can't do it. And how am I going to be sober on the opening day of dove season in Texas? I mean, that's insane. I'm not thinking about being able to be there for my family or any of this stuff. I'm thinking about weird, selfish stuff, and imagine that. So I'm this guy. I walked into a meeting. Chris took me, and I'm looking around the room at the nicest people I've ever met in my whole life, and I'm blown away. I got one sobriety date, January 15th, 88. I just simply fell in love with everything that was there, and I'm going to as many meetings as I can, and I'm doing everything. There's a few small items I left out of the picture. 1, I don't have a sponsor, and 2, I never read the big book. It shouldn't mean anything. I'm sober one day at a time, and I'm just marching along like a good little soldier, and I know everything about your personal life. I know everything about, well, y'all get it. It just, for 2 years, the goose hung high sort of thing. I mean, I'm just digging the whole show. And then somewhere between 2 and 3 years, I'm starting to get what later somebody would say, didn't you recognize restless, irritable, and discontent? And I didn't. All I recognized was the fact that I was struggling with this anxiety stuff, and so the doctor gave me a bunch of meds, and then the anxiety stuff goes away, and it's replaced by the nastiest depression I've ever had in my whole life. And I'm 3 years goes into 4 years, and 4 years into 5 years. By the end of 5 years, my family is scared of me. My wife doesn't know who I am because they don't know who's coming home. I mean, how many of y'all have ever been that classic stage character where you leave a meeting and you're patting yourself on the back because of that share that I'm just so special, and then something trips you on the way home, somebody cuts you off. It doesn't take anything, and now there's a book bag laying in the doorway when I get home, and I step over that, and now I'm the Marquis de Sade, complete with throwing book bags and pissed off at things that shouldn't matter at all like that. And my children, God love them. I mean, it's just, some of you can relate to this kind of stuff like that. The group that I sobered up in, they had 32 meetings a week. And I'm going to 6 meetings a week because it's real close to where I work. And I'm thinking that's it. All I got to do is just go to enough meetings and I'll be okay. I always get emails after I talk about this stuff like that. Guys, I'm not saying that I have nothing against going to a bunch of meetings. If your lifestyle will let you go to 3 meetings a day, go if that's what you want to do. But the idea that the meeting was the center of my program turned out to be something that I needed to deal with. It was problematic because what was fun at one point was not fun now. And so This depression is getting worse by the week. I can't function. I can't go to work. And my business partner is my wife. And so she's irritated times 10 that I can't hold up my end of the bargain and do the stuff that I'm supposed to do. And so it gets goofy. Guys, I'm manifesting all kinds of weird stuff that I don't understand. I'm starting to spend money I don't have. I'm buying music I don't listen to. I'm buying clothes I don't wear. It just gets this kind of weird. I always wanted to learn how to fly. And there's something about the FAA that they want you sober when you take a check ride. I think they're being kind of picky. But anyway, so I want to buy an airplane. I don't know if any aviators in here. There's no such thing as a cheap airplane. So I buy an airplane, and then a little bit later, I got to buy another airplane that's bigger, badder, faster. And then a little while later, I have to buy another airplane, much to the chagrin of everybody that knows me and knows what my bank account looks like. I just simply, I'm buying tools. They used to call me the tool whore. I don't. Guys, I'm buying tools I don't even know what they were. When I die, Scout's Honor, when I die, they're going to walk in and go, why would a man need 10 hacksaws? I haven't used one in 15 years. Why do I need 10 of them? But they're so badass. Ask Chris. He's been in my barn. What is all this stuff? It's crazy. So, Chris takes me to my first meeting, and Chris introduces me. I finally was standing in front of a beer cooler one night and almost got something to drink, and I remember calling Chris the next day, and I said, man, I'm in some trouble. And he said, you've been in trouble for years, and I've been telling you you're going to need to go find something else. Now, Chris had moved to the hill country, and he'd got a sponsor, a real sponsor, and he was always laughing when I talked to him. He was always happy. And so when I told him what the situation was, he says, there's not a chance you'll stay sober if you don't do something now. So he introduced me to this old guy named Cliff Bishop. Cliff passed away some years ago, and Cliff was sponsored by an old rascal named Joe McQuaney. So you can kind of see where this is heading, okay? Here I am, a guy. I meet Clifford. We have a conversation. He's asking me questions, and I don't know anything, guys. I'm 2 weeks shy of 7 years sober, and I can't tell you who the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous are. All I want is to be hip, slick, and cool. I want to be able to say something funny. I want to be able to make you laugh. I want to be able to. It's just crazy. So Clifford's got 2 book studies a week, Tuesday night and Thursday night, and we're doing this study, and I'm starting to learn some stuff like that. And guys, it's magic. I'm talking real magic. Because I'm starting to connect up dots. Oh, that's that guy. Oh, this is this. And I'm starting to kind of put stuff together like that. And so for a year, I studied like a wild man. But I'm still not sponsoring anybody. I've never sponsored anybody at all. And so a year goes into almost 2 years, and I'm still not. I know all. I can quote pages. I know this, but I'm still missing stuff. And I remember sitting in a meeting one night. And it was one of the most transformational, kind of pivotal things that I've ever been through. I'm looking around the room in people's faces like this, and I went, "Oh man, I'm still different than these people." And I remember catching Clifford after it, and I said, "Clifford, I'm still different." And he goes, "Been telling you, you're driving me crazy, Myers." And I said, "Okay, what do I do?" And I'll never forget it because he goes like this. He goes, he took his glasses off, and he looks at the ceiling like this, and he goes like this, and he said, "I tell you, Myers, I'm going to tell you one more time, and then bye. I'll see you." And I'm thinking by like Thursday I'll be back, and then I realized he meant go away, and I went, oh, okay. And so he told me the truth, and he said, "Myers, the truth is that you're still all of these years into this thing. You're 9 years into this with the deal, and you're still a taker. You're still taken. You're not willing to give." And he said, until you figure out a way to get involved in sponsorship and involved in all this other stuff, you're going to be in real trouble. And I went, oh, well, All right. So I'm going to make this quick because I want to tell you one little piece of this story because there's some other stuff I really, really, really want to talk about. Clifford said in that meeting when I was sitting, he and me by ourselves in this back room, and when I said, what do I do? And he said, tomorrow night is, I went, I know, tomorrow night's Salvation Army night. And because I've been driving him back and forth. He was pretty old at that time, and he was in his 80s. And I said, yeah, I know, it's Salvation Army night. And he said, no, it's Salvation Army night, but I want you to do something more than just drive me over there and then walk out in the parking lot and get on your phone, which is what I did. And he said, I want you to help us. And I went, okay, I will do that. So I get over there the next night, and nobody's there. And I'm going, those bastards, they didn't show up. And so it's just me and 170 men in this room, and I got a choice to make. I can either stay and do what I'm supposed to do, or I can go away. But if I go away, we might lose the gig. And I couldn't stand that happening, and so I went ahead and stayed and did it, and it was one of those, I knew where we were in the big book, and so I got that all set out, and we went ahead and did the meeting. After the meeting, I was thinking, because some of you can relate to this thing, my goal was, what I was going to do was, I was going to say, I was going to milk this for the next 10 years. I'd go, yeah, I did that talk out at the Sally. Yeah, I did. I wasn't ever going to go back. I just wanted to do that one meeting so I could tell people that that's what I did. And so I get it all done and that night, and I'm kind of backing away from that podium, and this guy said, hey, can you come back tomorrow night? And I went, And I mean, I'm kind of like between a rock and a hard place. There's a piece of me that went, wow, that guy asked me to come back, and my heart kind of melted. And there's another piece that went, dang, if I'd have just walked a little faster, I could have got out that door, and I'd have been okay like that. Some of y'all have been in that situation like that. And so anyway, so I said, yeah, I'll go back like that. And so I went home, everything was okay. I get up the next morning, and I'm not the same. I feel different. Now people go, I don't understand that part. It's because maybe you haven't done it yet. There is a point in recovery, and I think it's a common thread that runs through every one of us, where we began to realize what Bill Wilson was talking about when he said work and self-sacrifice for others. There's a piece of this where you line up with that, and all of a sudden it's this kind of sweet spot, and you go, I get it now. I get it. The reason I even mention it at all is because over the years I've sponsored so many men who were just like me, who were holding work and self-sacrifice out here. I mean, I don't mind work and self-sacrifice as long as it fits my schedule. As long as it's convenient, I'll do that. But to take a call at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, I mean, or to go, So, I got to tell you this little piece of this story, though, like that. We're at work, and I keep looking up at the clock, and I got 17 employees around me, and my wife, who's my partner, the brains of the operation, and she's walking through, and she keeps looking at me going, why do you keep looking at the clock? And I said, I got to go back over to Salvation Army tonight. And she said, what time is it? And I go, it's at 8 o'clock. And she said, Myers, it's lunchtime. Come on. So about 2 o'clock, I said, I'm out of here. I got to go like that. And she said, good riddance. And so I headed home like this. And guys, I'm feeling like I'm going on my first date. I didn't dress up enough that night. I needed to go do something different for tonight. And I got this, and I got clothes laid out on the bed, and I take a shower, and I come back, and then I lay some more clothes out, and then I go back and take another shower, and I go, there's something really special heading that direction at 8 o'clock. I just don't know exactly what it is. And so I go back over there, and when I did, I walked into the room, and these men start walking towards me real fast, and it's a little scary, it's a little intimidating, and they get pretty close, and then one guy kept walking, everybody else kind of stopped, and this one guy kept walking toward me. The biggest guy I think I've ever seen in my life. His arms were as big around as my thighs. I mean, it's just like, and so as he walks in like this, he gets right up in my face, and I went like this, and I put my hands up like this to try to, and he just puts his arms around me and picks me up off the ground. And I just, I'm pushing kind of like this, and then I realize if this guy wanted to hurt me, he would have hurt me. I mean, it was just like this. So it's kind of weird. I probably ought to talk to a therapist about this, but it's weird. It's weird because when I realized that there wasn't anything I could do, he had me like hugging me, and I remember just dropping my arms like this, and I just turned my head sideways and put it down in his chest like this, and he was just holding me like that. And he sets me down on the ground, and he looked at me, and he said, "We've been looking forward to you coming back over here all day." And I went, "Dude, me too. Me too." And so, I don't know, there was a little switch, a little click, and it switched this button, and I felt like Jimmy Swaggart. I had my big book out like this. Testify. I was just like all sweaty, and it was the sweetest thing in the world like that, guys, and it changed everything about how I looked at it. I realized all of a sudden that I didn't have to be smart, I didn't have to be witty, I didn't have to be any of these things that I thought. What I had to be is willing to just go do that, willing to be uncomfortable, and try to be of service. And it changed everything. Let me ask you, how many of y'all have ever heard of a cat named Don Pritz? Some of you older folks would. Sometimes when you're home and you get tired of Googling weasel porn or whatever it is you're looking at, listen, I'll get 5 emails tomorrow saying, "Do you spell weasel W-E-A-S-E-L or Don't go there, okay? Just don't do it, okay? Anyway, Google. I'm sorry. Google Don Pritz. Don Pritz was an iconic guy from the Denver area, and he was sort of amazing. He sobered up in the federal penitentiary system in 62 or 3, I think. But it was like he was epic. And in an early talk that he did in the 70s, he said something that blew me away. And this is Don Pritz talking, and Don said, I'm so concerned these days. Now, this was in the 70s when he's writing. He said, I'm so concerned these days that we seem to talk more and more about sobriety and less about recovery. Two distinctly different deals. I mean, I'm sober one day at a time, blah, blah, blah. In the words of my friend Mickey, so's the cat. Guys, I love the idea that we're sober. I truly do. I never get tired of the fact that we're sober. This is a game changer like that. But what drives me crazy is how many of us in these rooms, me included, for all of those years, were satisfied with that idea that just being sober one day at a time was enough. And for some of you, it may be. I'm not saying that we're all exactly like that. But there was so much more. All you got to do, the stuff that Nick read before this thing, that little piece on 75, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. I mean, when you begin to read these things, you begin to realize, and most of us will sit there and scratch a little bit and go, wait a minute, maybe they meant more. Maybe there was something deeper, bigger, broader, just grander that this program was about than just going to meetings and being sober one day at a time. And so when you begin to look at the bigger picture of all of those promises, stop and think about this. Either when you read all of the promises in the big book, and there's a whole jillion of them, a bunch of little nests of them like this, when you read those promises, you have to ask yourself the question. Now, either Bill Wilson and the First 100, when they wrote this stuff, they either meant that, or they were just trying to sell books and that this was all rhetorical, just stuff like that. Well, and I always thought that's what it was. It was just stuff that they wrote like that, until this stuff started happening and I began to realize based on the fact that I was willing to be of service to somebody else, I was beginning to realize that so much of this stuff I hadn't experienced. And it kind of kicked open this door, and all of a sudden, AA was really exciting again, and being in recovery was something that made me want to be involved on a deeper level. And I've seen that with a whole lot of guys. I was having breakfast with Clifford and Joe McQuaney one morning, and we were talking about this stuff. Joe had come down from Arkansas to Dallas, and we were just sitting there talking, and Joe was looking at me, and then he'd look at Clifford, and he'd look back at me, and I went, "What?" like this. And he said, I don't know if any of you ever met Joe McQuaney before he passed away, but he was an enormous dude, and he was just looking at me like this, and he said, "Myers," he said, I'm really concerned about you in a way. And I said, "About what?" And he said, You seem to think that you could overcome self by exerting more self." And I said, "Well, that's what we do. I mean, we just got some willpower, man." And he goes, "Okay." And then he looked at Clifford and he said, "Good luck." And Clifford looked at me, and I looked at Joe and I said, "Joe, tell me, what am I missing?" And he said, "Myers," he said, "you keep wanting to make this an intellectual deal. You want to get smart over here so you can be smart over here teaching, and then you think it's all about that. And the reality of this stuff is, this is about how much time you're spending with God and how much time you're spending with God's kids." And I said, "Oh yeah." And I looked at Clifford and almost rolled my eyes, but I was glad that I didn't like this. Because the reality of it was, he was dead right. He was 100% right like this. Guys, we need to ask the question, how much time are we spending with God's kids? How much time are we active in sponsorship? People say, "Well, why would you ask that question?" Because I've sponsored hundreds of men over the years that have never, ever sponsored anybody. I was one of them. I'm not talking from some mountaintop. I was one of them. I sponsor a lot of guys in Europe now with Zoom stuff like this. I mean, it's amazing how many, and it's amazing how many people simply, it's like, are we in the same fellowship? Because what you described to me is like AA light. It's like some, it just doesn't look like what Bill and them painted, the way that they put this stuff. The other piece was how much time are you spending with God's kids? I mean, how much time are you spending with God? The prayer was always an optional deal with me. Always optional. If there was a blowtorch up against my rear end and I was in trouble about something like this, I'm a praying fool like that. But as soon as the blowtorch goes away like this, I just simply chillax. I'm cool. We got this like that. There's no discipline in any of that. The reality of this stuff is, you watch people come in, work the steps, and then they just chill. And that's where people start sliding sideways. That's where things start getting goofy like this. They're sober, and they do what I did like that. I mean, we've got 2 more workshops coming up, and I want to talk about some of that stuff when we do. It's just a... Joe one time said, "Myers," he said, our job is to feed, not be fed." And I remember thinking that, and I remember thinking, you know what, he's absolutely right. Here, at that time, I was 10, 11 years in a program, and there's still a piece of me that wants to go into a meeting because I can get something. I hope you say something sharp, man, because I'm going to need it. I need me some new aphorisms or something to throw out there. I need like this. And Clifford said, the moment you get in your head that you need to serve and to feed, you're going to be in that little sweet spot. And he was absolutely right, 100% right. It's a game changer from the moment you get. I mean, guys, how many of you have been in situations? Let me do this. I won't make anybody feel uncomfortable, but let me just, what I used to always do is I used to go in to meetings and I'm looking for my homies. I'm looking for people that I know, and I'm going to go get up there and we're going to talk some stuff and we're going to, play around like this, and then we'll start the meeting and we'll do the meeting like this, and then afterwards I'm looking for my homies so we can do some more of that kind of stuff like that. It never even occurred to me that there might be some little busted up dumpster fire that just walked in the door that was desperate for help. It never even occurred to me. And so once I connected with all that stuff, then I went, I need to change this game. And the men that I sponsor, we need to change our game. And we go do what we need to do, which is be of service. Because it's tough walking into a big old meeting with 200 people in that room if you're brand new. It's a tough deal. Bill Wilson in 1942 had a little piece that he did, and they later put it on something that he wrote anyway. Our chief responsibility of the newcomer is an adequate presentation of the program. Guys, my job is to get you through the work as quickly as I can in a timely fashion. I'm not trying to shove a bunch of stuff up. Yeah, y'all get that. Let me ask y'all a question. How many of y'all have ever been motivated to do something and then later you found that you were not motivated and so you just didn't do anything? I hope at some point in time every one of you get the chance to come to Ingram, Texas, and you'll walk into my house and you'll see this music room with 2 banjos, 2 guitars, and all these musical instruments and this kind of stuff that I buy in the middle of my motivation. I go and buy all this kind of stuff. Guess how many songs I can play? 0. I can't play anything. Because the motivation goes. How many of y'all have seen people in treatment that would eat a spider to get sober? They'd do anything they could to get sober. And then 2 weeks later, they're sitting in the back of the room, leaning back with their hat on backwards and sunglasses on, and they don't give a rat's fuzzy rear who you are. Because the motivation, the dynamic of that pain and suffering of that stuff has gone sideways, and now they've gone back into their head where most of us go and say, well, I'm going to be okay. I'm cool. I got the knowledge I need. Y'all, the next time you get a chance to read Bill's story, go back and look at how many times in Bill's story he did things to try to get sober that we all did exactly the same thing. I can't relate to being a golfer. I can't relate to being a World War I vet. I can't relate to a lot of Bill's story like that. But how many of us have ever tried to stop based on self-knowledge? If you were ever in treatment, you did. I guarantee you like that. How about fear? Fear sobered me up for a bit like that. Fear would do like that. Willpower. How about willpower? Bill did that too. Geographic. Will did that. This is the kind of thing like that. But it's going to take more than that. And this is the stuff that we need to be teaching to new people when they come in. Timeliness is huge. I'm a huge fan of... Let me ask you a question. Next time you're in a meeting, I want you to, for just a while, close your eyes and listen to what people are hearing. Not who's saying it. We don't care who's saying what. Just listen to what people are saying like that. And this happened when my daughter got real sick of this stuff, and she ended up in AA, and she just. And I got hypersensitive to what she was hearing in meetings. The rooms were still full of the nicest people in the whole wide world. But you would sit there and you'd listen, and one guy over here will say, well, my sponsor wants me to work the work pretty quick, and we're going to be through here in a month or two. And then 2 chairs later, somebody goes, well, my sponsor's got me working 1 step a month, and it may take us maybe 1.5 years to maybe 2 years to work the steps. Listen, I'm not... Do you see the confusion that it sets up? Here I am sitting in a room full of the nicest people in the whole wide world, and I'm hearing conflicting pieces of information, and I don't know what to do. And I'm too lazy to pick up a big book and read it to see what it is. But so let me just ask you what lines up with the big book more? Which of those versions? Well, the timely version. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action. I mean, the book just keeps next, like that. They're trying to get us to move like this. You go look at any of the historical data, nobody in the old days took a long time to do the work. The problem with this stuff is, guys, is that there are 2 things that nobody can give you. Nobody can give you. One's willingness and one's gratitude. And both of them are fleeting. You may be the most grateful person in the world and the most willing person in the world one day, but 2 weeks later you may be sitting there scratching going, I think I'm going to change groups. I don't see any girls over here I like. And you just missed everything that we were supposed to be there for. There's an old saying in AA that we teach what we're taught. And it's truth. If you were taught to just show up and go to meetings, then that's what you'll do, and that's what you'll teach. This is the reason why I'm such a huge fan of book studies and literature-based meetings, where we can understand what their bigger deal was in the big picture like that. Let me give you a couple of suggestions, and then I've got about 9 minutes, and we'll. This will sound really weird. It's a stupid story, but and you can roll your eyes. It's okay. There was a guy that was a little junior PGA golf pro that I sponsored in Dallas for a while, and it was just a sweetheart of a guy like that. But he was me times 2. Me times 10. He was just there to teach people how to play golf and to talk about golf and to this kind of stuff. But he always had his little homies around him. He had a little posse that walked around with him like that. It was weird. And I kept talking to him, and I kept telling him, buddy, you're missing. The program is over here with all this amazing transformational stuff, and you're over here wasting a bunch of time. If you want to waste your time, I can't stop you from doing that. But you're distracting a lot of people in this meeting that really need to be getting busy, or they're not going to make it like that. And he goes, well, if that's what you say. And I said, well, he said, I'll do better. Well, a week later, I walk around the corner into this courtyard, and he's sitting over in the other end of the courtyard, teaching. He's got bent over like this, and 3 or 4 of the guys that I sponsor are sitting there listening to him like this. And he's teaching them how to swing a golf club. And when I walked around the corner, they all saw me, but he didn't. And they scattered like roaches in the light. I mean, it was like... And I remember him standing up like this, and he goes, Myers, I'm sorry. And I go, it's okay. I'll call him Bill. That's not his name. But I said, Bill, just do me a favor. I want you to stand right there by the window and watch me for a second. And he goes, I'll go in with you. And I said, no. I want you to stand right there. And there's a big glass wall between the courtyard and the meeting hall. And we're still an hour away from the meeting starting. We already got 50 or 60 people in the meeting. And I said, I want you to just watch me. And so he said, okay. So I walk in like this, and I'm telling you this because it's fun. It's just fun to do like that. So I walk into the room, and so let me give you a piece of advice. If you see somebody reading a big book before the meeting, they're a perfect target. Nobody goes to a meeting to read a big book before the meeting. I mean, they're doing it because they're hung out. They're lonely. They're just, and so I walk around the corner, and I look right there, and I walk over like this, and I go, dude, that's a pretty good book right there. And he goes, yeah. And I go, what's your favorite part? Oh, I don't know. I'm just new. I don't really. I said, no, kid, dude, let me show you. I want to show you what my favorite part is. And he goes, really? And I go, I knew I was going to do that. And so he goes, yeah, go ahead and show it. So I go to page 44, We Agnostics, the first paragraph. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, that piece. I just go to there. Now, what I'm doing is I'm kind of qualifying him without him knowing that he's being qualified. And then we laugh a little bit, and I say, listen, in a minute, this meeting is going to get to be a cluster. There's going to be a lot of people in here, and we're going to do a foundation meeting, so some of them are going to leave, and I'm sitting right over there. Why don't you come sit over there with me, and I'll just kind of show you what's going on. He goes, okay, cool. And he goes over there, and then I just kind of look around there. Oh, there's another big book. And I walk over there, and I go, hey, what are you reading? Oh, this is a big book. I said, oh, no kidding. What's your favorite part? It's the same thing. And I just go through the same thing. Pretty soon I got 3 people sitting over next to me like this. And so I turn around, and my little golf pro is looking at me through the window like this. And I just went like... And I went over and sat down next to my guys. Now, so that's a Tuesday night. Well, guess who their best friend is on Thursday night when they come back for the meeting? Me. I walk through the parking lot and I go, Myers, like that, and they're all there, excited and ready to go do something. Listen, if you couldn't do anything else in a meeting, if you didn't know anything about the big book, you're sober 3 days, go greet somebody. Go be kind to somebody. I just like... There are millions of people that you won't remember in your lifetime, but I promise you, you will always remember the people that were kind to you and gentle with you when you first got in these rooms like that. And so just go carry that message like that. And then pay attention and watch what happens. It's a transformational kind of a thing. At the center of this program is a relationship with our Creator, a deepening relationship. It should grow. Mark Houston used to say, a year from now, if you're the same place you are spiritually today, a year from now, then maybe we ought to talk. Maybe we ought to figure out something like that. And it's absolutely the truth that this thing is about growth and about being excited, about transforming lives. Guys, I'm always glad that I'm sober, but I'm far greater that I've been put in a position where this crusty old bastard from Central Texas could be in the lives of so many people and have a chance to change those lives and in some cases save those lives. And that's some magic stuff to be. It puts a purpose on our life that takes us to a level that none of us really knew or understood that we could be there. Listen, it's a treat knowing y'all, and I love to stay in contact. If you need anything or if there's anything I can do to help or in any way, just let me know. Thanks for your kindness. Wow.